A question that I am often asked is why teaching? My road toward teaching has been paved since I was a child, enamored by the idea of school itself. There was always something about learning, or better yet the process of learning, that fascinated me. It might sound cliché, but over time I fell in love with the idea of school itself, and the ability to experience something new every day. This documentary will illuminate the forces that ultimately called me toward the educational field, and how they've shaped the type of teacher that I hope to one day be. From a young age, I always flirted with the idea of becoming a teacher. Others wanted to be police officers or doctors, but there was something about teaching that seemed so glamorous. They had such a wealth of knowledge, and if someone needed something, they always seemed to have an answer. While other students were more interested in having fun, and were usually jumping out of their skin waiting for the bell to ring at the end of the day, I couldn't get enough of school. Even after the day had ended, my parents came to expect getting a full history or science lesson at the kitchen table during dinner time, and my friends were always prepared to play school as soon as summer came. My path toward teaching came as a result of several inspiring people. While other students were pushed in so many different directions by the adults in their lives, my mother and father always encouraged me to do what I loved. Although never strict when it came to academics, their encouragement made me a better student and a better person. The person who potentially inspired me the most to go into teaching was my own brother, Joey. His path was similar to mine, and watching his success gave me the courage to choose education as my career. While his high marks guided him toward the business world, his love for learning also brought him back to education. He became an alternate route candidate and achieved his license that way. But watching his personal journey, I realized that having money and being truly happy were very different. Despite my love for learning, I had no idea how to hone my skills or even what type of content that I would want to teach. Before entering high school, my career goals were profoundly different than they were when I was a child. My dream of teaching elementary school seemed less and less enticing. After working with younger children, I quickly realized that teaching may not necessarily be for me. My teachers in middle school were less than encouraging and made the teaching profession look like a dead end. It wasn't until entering high school that I rekindled my appreciation for learning. 3 years of middle school had left me searching for a new path, but the moment I stepped into Miss Clifford's honors English class on the first day of school, my interest was instantly piqued. The class had so much variation and was so inspiring. Developing my writing as the year went on, I began as a tutor for others in the class, and with Miss Clifford's guidance, I joined the school newspaper. With my newfound confidence, I took an honors history class with Mr. Corvo, who was unlike any teacher who I had before. History, which had always seemed so distant and boring, was surprisingly interesting and entertaining for the first time. He inspired me to pursue my studies in history, and I then went on to take AP History the following year, eventually deciding to major in it in college. Without his class, I can honestly say that I might not be studying to be a history teacher now. Looking back, if I could model my class after his, I'm sure I would only find success. Finally, during my junior year, I took Mrs. DiGeronimo's honors English class. It was clear from the first day that her class would be the most difficult of my high school career. Her expectations were strict, and she had absolutely no tolerance for lazy work. Even though students really struggled, everyone seemed to agree that her class was the model for others to follow. She had a profound impact on me and completely transformed who I was as a learner. I was always a good student, but after taking her class, I had a newfound drive to be the best. With her encouragement, I joined the school's creative writing club, and together we reinvented and expanded it to the entire student body. We successfully launched a magazine from the club called The Empyrean, and it was here that I published my first writing. Working with the club and helping to improve others' writing, it seemed that I had found my calling. I loved working with younger students, and it felt amazing helping them to improve their work. In addition to the Creative Writing Club, I began volunteering at my local church teaching CCD to a group of 4th grade students. This was one of the greatest challenges of my life, but it provided so much experience communicating with parents and understanding what it meant to lead a class. Likewise, working on the school newspaper and on the student council, I got the opportunity to hone my research skills and work as the editor of the newspaper. My writing only continued to improve from there. On the student council, leading large groups became old hat, and experiencing the position of power provided great experience as well. Under Miss Clifford's guidance, I became an official tutor at the school, and during this time I got a taste of the challenges that come from working with struggling students. Although it was difficult managing my own schoolwork with tutoring others, it was always worth it, and it ultimately left a lasting impression on me when I was deciding on my major later on. Being a part of these groups changed me and made me more organized and better able to understand what teaching would really be like. Despite its faults, my love for the school environment only continued to grow. Although I was still unsure of which career path I wanted to take, it was clear that I loved the world of education, and given the choice, I would never leave it. During my senior year, I was certain that education was what I wanted to do. I saw my brother being pulled toward business, and it seemed like a fate that I never wanted for myself. Despite the overt pull toward teaching that seemed to have a hold on me for my entire life, I got the same advice that my brother got when he went off to college. Teaching is a dead end, people would say. With your brain, you should go into business or economics or even engineering. Of course, others didn't understand the allure of teaching. To them, there was only one indication of success, and that was money. My parents and brother were always encouraging me to do what I wanted, but it seemed that everyone else was telling me to go in a different direction. Even the counselors at my school tried their best to dissuade me from the education track in college. Sure, I could be successful as a businessman, and I could probably have done well for myself financially, but even with wealth and power, would I truly be happy? As I took courses in economics and business relations in college, the image that I had of myself sitting behind a desk for the rest of my life seemed like a sad one. Rather than always learning new things and inspiring others to follow their dreams, I would instead spend my days crunching numbers and trying to decide how to maximize profits for shoes or watches or whatever materialistic product I'd be peddling. With encouragement from my brother, I switched majors and finally decided to pursue teaching, a decision that I now realize I should have made from the very beginning. As I learned about the struggling state of education in my classes and the divide in student achievement, I was more inspired than ever to right the wrongs of this broken system and play my part in making education better. The focus on testing, I realized, was crippling the ingenuity and creativity that I loved in my classes growing up, and I decided that I would be a teacher who succeeded in areas where so many others had failed. I would maintain a diversified classroom that encouraged students to follow their dreams and share their talents with the class. Deciding to teach high school history, I wanted to recall the success that Mr. Corvo had with me when I first attended high school. Talking with students during my fieldwork, I began to question, where's the fun? Education used to provide a new experience every day. As a teacher, my greatest goal will be to make my students want to come to class and to leave appreciating their experience, as I did while I was a student. Students shouldn't be falling asleep on their desks because the class is so boring they could not possibly remain conscious, but rather they should be unable to look away because the material is that interesting. You may be thinking that this vision is easier said than done, but I think that it's entirely possible. With new tools available, specifically new technologies, so much is possible in the classroom. By utilizing devices such as computers, tablets, e-readers, phones, and other tools, so many assignments and learning prompts are possible. From developing video games to designing websites to creating short films, the interest of students no longer needs to be lost spending every day giving long, drawn-out lectures, but by providing what they truly need for success, variation. I feel that one of the most important jobs of a teacher is to foster an environment that caters to every student's unique talents and abilities. While some students are more skilled when writing essays and taking tests, others have different talents that can be used to measure their learning as well. By always encouraging change in the classroom, it also encourages the retention of information. If knowledge is always accessed in a way that lends itself to cramming and memorizing information, little learning is actually being done. I want each class to be a new experience for my students, where one day it's a class discussion about the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and the next it's a debate about justifying America's response, and the next is a group project about World War II. Of course, because I will be teaching history, there will be a fair amount of lecturing, but I hope to use different methods to expose the students to the material and hopefully pique their interest in it as well. With a few simple steps, class can be transformed from boring and tedious to interesting and engaging. This is the true job of a teacher, to find the best in his students and encourage them to be their best. I hope to be a teacher like Miss Clifford or Mr. Corvo or Mrs. DiGeronimo. I always knew that somehow my journey would lead me toward education, and I'm glad that it did.